This is New School Marketing Podcast for real estate pros, where the very best of real estate reveal their latest systems and strategies. With your host, Marlon Aquino.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to a new episode of New School Marketing. Today, I've got a special guest out of San Diego that I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys. He's been growing his online brand for a while now, working with some of the best people. You've seen him speaking at just big events, and now we've got him here on our podcast today. So get ready because we have a big stuff coming up. Let me introduce you guys the one and only Jason Cassidy.
Yeah, what up?
What's up, dude? Thank you for joining us today. Really excited to have you here. It's a pleasure.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I saw during the intro, you've had Derek Gregory and Chris Benjamin, Gabe Mendez, some fire people on there.
I've been blessed to have, some of the really big players in the game. And that's why, we had to have you on here as well, because you're just up there. And really excited for the stuff you've got sharing with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So guys, for those of you watching, of course, on the live stream right now, you can actually catch the episode on every streaming platform, probably 2 weeks from now. But if you're watching it from Facebook Live right now, then you're getting an inside peek of the content before it actually releases globally. But yeah, let's get straight to it because I'm excited to hear from Jason. Jason, for those of us watching right now that haven't come across you for whatever reason, can you please, give us a little backstory on how you got started and who you are?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. So my name's Jason Cassidy. I'm a real estate agent here in San Diego, California. I've got a team of 7 now, me plus 7. I've been doing it for about 10 or 11 years. Mostly grow my business through social media lens, right? Whether that be some sort of video marketing or marketing related stuff. We document a lot of what we do on social media, which has helped grow followings on all the channels. And then that has led to a lot of agent to agent referrals, which has been kind of a cool thing that's happened over the past few years. So, as a team, last year, there was only 5 of us. We did 75 transactions for about 60 million in volume here in San Diego. I'm still in production, so I did about half of that myself, and then the team did the rest. This year, I've done a little bit less, given more and more to the team. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm married. I have 2 kids, and I live here just about 10 minutes outside of downtown in a little suburb called La Mesa, California.
Oh my gosh. And let me tell you, you're in a hot market. Like you just, you mentioned Gabe Mendez. There's a few other people that we could get into. And
Sure.
Just the fact that you're making a mark in that area and you're in your own lane, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a really competitive environment. Southern California as a whole, between LA and San Diego, it's a really competitive landscape. But that being said, I think that the people who built, like Gabe and others who built foundations, branding themselves versus just maybe picking up leads and stuff like that, people who built actual foundations are going to be the ones that usually win in the long term, I think.
And that's, what? After so many interviews, that's a constant theme that comes up is those foundations that really get you to where you're at. Because there's people that have been in real estate as well for, more or less the same amount of time as you have, let's say 10 years. Mm-hmm. And because of, the lack of foundation, they've been just like in and out of it, part-time here, full-time there. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're always at the mercy of someone else. If you're just buying your leads or even, the normal stuff you think of, geographic farming, Zillow leads, online leads, you're always kind of at the mercy of someone else in those cases. But if you can build up a strong brand, a strong reputation to where the business seeks you out, you attract the business versus going and chasing it, you're going to do much better for yourself.
And we'll get into that, of course, in a little bit. But that's really, one key word that everyone's listening, hearing these days. When during the pandemic, the word was pivot. How do we pivot? And now the key word is shift. Things are shifting, but things are shifting definitely in a way where your brand is really what's going to get you the business and not the company that you're working with. So
sure.
I definitely want to jump into that in a little bit, but just for a little bit more context, what were you doing for real estate? Why? And then how, eventually, what led you to real estate at some point? But what were you doing before? Were you selling shoes somewhere?
No, not really. I worked at the bank. So I worked at Wells Fargo. I lived in Sacramento. I grew up in Sacramento, and then I moved down to San Diego and back in 2010. And I was working at Wells Fargo at the time, and I became a branch manager there. And I was young. I was 24, 25 years old. And I just didn't, the retail thing, I was always kind of catching myself daydreaming and stuff like that. And so around that time, as I stopped working at Wells Fargo, I got my real estate license, started interning for this local indie brokerage, did a lot of blogging and like property management and stuff like that. And then ultimately a couple years into that, I felt like I needed to go full time in that and decided to make the jump full time. So I was working at the bank, so nothing too glamorous. You know, I had a little bit of a knowledge of the financial system and how mortgages worked and stuff like that. But at the same time, it was starting in real estate was pretty much fresh. That was scratch because the banking world and the real estate world, they're not exactly intertwined. So it was kind of a fresh start.
Not at all. Not only that, even, as a realtor, when you're getting started and, I think the times have changed a little bit. They're probably a little better now, a lot more resources, but there's really not a lot of actual training for realtors starting out and how to generate those leads, how to build those brands. I mean, you kind of get thrown into a dungeon. So we're saying.
Yeah, for sure. It was like sink or swim a little bit. Yeah,
exactly.
The first couple of years, luckily I had my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, but she, we were living together. She had a great job because those first couple of years, it's like top ramen days sometimes, you know what I mean? Like you have to actually build up your book of business and you build up, when you're first starting out. I was 26 years old. It's not like I had this, big book of business of past clients or parents, friends that were going to sell their house with me. I was really starting from scratch. And I was,
and no one in your family that was a realtor already or something. Like
nobody in my family was a realtor already. And I was from Sacramento. So I wasn't from San Diego. So I didn't go to high school here. I didn't have this big, this big network down here. So I was legitimately starting from scratch. And so it took a little bit longer to get that ramped up. But the early years can be tough. A lot of times I always tell people, if you're brand new and you're starting from scratch, it's going to be pretty beneficial to have like a second job or some sort of like stable income in your household, because it could take a couple years to really start to establish.
Especially if you're the breadwinner,
what's that?
Especially if you're the breadwinner and you don't have like that support system from your wife or something.
100%. Yeah, whether it be a second job or someone in the house with a second job or stable job, you know what I mean? Because that first couple of years, like you don't, you're trying to establish yourself and grow your business, but most people don't make it through the first 2 years. And the reason being is that the paychecks are inconsistent. Now I know people who have made it through the first couple of years and made 6 figures, you know what I mean? They just work their ass off. So, and it can be done, but it's very statistically improbable to make it like pop in your first year or two. So maybe have some sort of like second job or some sort of like stable income.
Yeah. And actually just to dive in a little bit into that, into your early beginnings, you said you started with a small brokerage. What was your process like then? Because I know that what you're doing now is completely different. And so I'd like to jump into that because realistically, we all know that the 1% right now gets, 90% of the business. So you've got all these other people that are trying to reach your level. And sometimes they're like, well, shoot, I don't know how he got there. Seems so far. What was that process like for you at the beginning?
I did the same thing too. I would always compare myself to people who had been in the business for 10 years and 15 years. And that's a surefire way to like find yourself like always wanting more, you know what I mean? And so that's a bad move, because if I looked up to people who have now been doing it for 25 years, it's an unfair comparison. You know what I mean? So like, hopefully if you're just starting out, you're not looking at someone who's been doing it for 10 years, because we have kind of a head start on you by this point. So like, don't compare yourself to people who've been doing it for 10 or 15 years. Now, look, you can look up to people who like that and kind of study their game and how they got there, but I wouldn't compare yourself to them. That's a recipe for disaster. But so when I started out, I was interning for this guy who owned his own indie brokerage, and he would do a lot of blogging for SEO reasons, because about 10 years ago, you could actually rank for specific keywords, like San Diego real estate or downtown San Diego condos for sale. And so his website would rank for all those keywords. So I learned kind of like how to generate like property descriptions to make sure they were keyword rich, and then how to like write blogs so that people would traffic your website. But that being said, then like that's probably not the same game I would take now, because like Zillow and Redfin, those sites now dominate all the keywords. So you're not going to be able to start a blog and get it to rank. Now I would shift your focus onto social media and creating your own brand, because then people will come find you through Instagram, TikTok, whatever, short form, vertical video, put that content out, become the digital mayor of your neighborhood so that people seek you out instead of going to Zillow. That's kind of the game now, is you put out educational content and you put out relevant content, property tours and stuff like that. Via your social media, so that people follow you and then they seek you out when they're ready, versus trying to, do what I did in the beginning, which was like long form SEO.
No. And I mean, two things, strategies. What's working now may not be working, what's working now may not continue to work later, and vice versa. But it seems like even then we were at least working with someone that was kind of ahead of the curve, because even that alone, most people even, then we're doing that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that was a cool niche that I learned. And then, but he was still a successful agent. He still knew how to geographic farm and how to open a lockbox. And like, he was able to teach me the things that I needed to know. I always talk about the clouds in the dirt, where it's like, you want to be the number one agent in your market, but do you know how to pick up a phone and set an appointment? There's a lot of things that happen in between there. So he was able to give me that baseline foundation. And then his specialty was like online, like SEO, search engine optimization and blogging and stuff like that. And so I got to learn that from him. And then what I did was, around year 2 or 3, once I felt like I was strong enough, like to actually know what I was talking about, then I started to use kind of his knowledge plus my knowledge of social media. I was 26, 27 years old. I knew how to use Instagram and Facebook. So then I was able to grow my brand that way. Because a lot of times, like, what you want to do is you want to create a digital avatar of who you are. So for me right now, it's a 36-year-old, married, 2 kids, lives in the suburbs, right? I'm trying to target me. So where do I spend my time? Instagram, Facebook, Zillow, Google, right? And so that's also where I advertise. And that's where I build up stuff. So like basically back when I was 27, it was all Instagram and YouTube and social media and stuff like that.
And
so
this was already once you had a couple of years in the business.
Exactly.
When you did start, there wasn't any social media yet, or was there?
Facebook was there, back in 2010 or so. It was really just Facebook and YouTube was there too. But I still don't think there's a lot of people doing YouTube very well. So there was a few people, but not a lot of people advertising real estate related stuff on there. Mostly it was just like
not so much, I think. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's awesome. All right. Well, like, since we're already talking about some of those things, social media, I mean, obviously, what started skyrocketing your business, once you did kind of branch out and start your own thing?
So as I started to grow, the social media aspect of things was really helpful because it allowed my followers, who at that time was basically like my sphere, my friends, my family, people who are closely associated with us, and then some local people. So I would sell a listing and then I would farm that area, add people to my social media there. So people were able to see, like, come along with my journey kind of, because I was just documenting what I was doing. And so I think that really helped take me to this next level. And then somewhere around year 6 or 7, I also partnered up and I got to know Eric Simon, who runs an account called The Broke Agent on Instagram, which is a big Instagram account for the real estate space. And then we created a friendship. And then I started to notice, I started doing some giveaways with him, which got me a lot of agent followers. So my following grew from like 7,000 to 12,000 over the course of just a few months, because I was getting a lot of agents that followed me thanks to The Broke Agent. He was tagging me in some stuff. And so then I started getting agent to agent referrals from people that I had never met before, Mark in Boise or Matt in Miami, right? Because like they followed me on Instagram now because of the relationship with The Broke Agent. But it was like, so I had the local thing kind of covered plus my past clients, but then I was also getting random agents that followed me too. So that was kind of the next level that scaled up to almost to where I am now. I would say like that next jump.
Yeah, I've seen that's a big component, is the referral agent aspect of things.
Big time. Yeah. I would say that's probably the most important one.
Yeah, because, great. I think most of the agents go on, online to generate leads and, consumers. Mm-hmm. But most of the deals, I think, are really coming from agent referrals. People are saying, hey, man, I've got this listing that I think you'd be perfect for, or whatever the case may be. But I think that's where, I think there's more agent referral business going on than there is consumers really reaching out to people in the DMs about helping them sell or buy a home.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Right? I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really the key, is like making an impression within your industry. I think it's a big thing.
Big time. I agree.
So obviously back in the days when you started out, it was Facebook and YouTube, which were 2 platforms not really being used that much. But obviously you started working with Eric, you said, right, from Broke Agent. Yeah. And then from there is really when you start seeing the referral. I mean, were you creating content already? Like, obviously you're a one-man team at first, correct?
Yeah, it was probably, year 6, I think, is when I brought in my first team member, Kimthy. So year 6 and 7 is when I started to grow the team. Years 1 and 2, I was just figuring it out. Years 3 through 5, I was starting to do good one-man business, and I always say I learned how to be an agent. And then year 5 or 6, I learned how to be a team leader. And I started to like bring in team members and actually run it like a business versus running it just like an agent. And so it was probably about that point too, year 7 or something, that I made the jump into more agent-centric content. And that's where then it started to parlay into like speaking engagements and things with Inman and all these different kind of like other avenues that I had never even thought about being like a source of business, but that all happened around year 7 or so. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, like Inman, for example, this is someone that you reached out to try to establish that connection to get that extra visibility, or it was just based off the content that you were doing that they reached out to you?
No, I reached out to them initially. So I was I still am a big reader of Inman and, you know, like the broke agent medias and the real deals, basically like the macro level stuff. I want to know why Redfin is talking to Zillow, right? I want to know not just about San Diego, but I want to know about the real estate kind of power players. And so I would always read Inman, and then I reached out to them one time and I was like, hey, I want to be a contributor. Do you guys accept some submissions? And they said, yeah. And they said, here's how you do it. And so I started writing for them. And then I went to their conference in New York, and I was like, I want to speak on the stage. So I reached out to my contributor person and I was like, how do I get to be a speaker? And they're like, submit this out. You know what I mean? And they're basically like, here's how you do this. And so they put me on like a panel first, and then it was like, then it grew. And then now it's like, you know, you'll get like a 20-minute solo, which that's a whole nother like layer of stuff. But I definitely, I took initiative and reached out to them. I didn't wait for that to happen. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's a big thing already that I would love for people to take out. Just taking initiative, not waiting that I've got to build my brand first before, or expect that people reach out to you. You got to actually jump in the DM, get in those emails and make those contacts, build those relationships, right?
No one's going to grow your business for you. Yeah.
How, as important has it been building relationships for you as well? How's that really helped you grow your business?
That's been the biggest thing. Yeah, I think it's everything. You know what I mean? I think because then the Inman speaking, it parlays into speaking at a different conference or having somebody else. And then all that type of stuff is fodder for your Instagram. And like it's content that you can put out. So then it's like going back to the distribution channel of social media. You have your past clients that follow you on there, and then they see that you're speaking. So it's like you're staying top of mind so that when they're ready to sell the house, they may have been getting door knocked and farmed and by every other agent in San Diego, but they're like, nah, like they keep seeing the success or like the stuff that I'm doing subconsciously, so that when they're ready, they call me.
Yeah, you're building your credibility, you're building your authority in the space, which is really, like you said, how do you stand out? And come on, everyone knows a realtor, either a family member or
probably
somebody.
5. Yeah, they probably know a bunch.
At least 5. There you go. And again, it's like, why? A lot of times where the memes that I always see where a family member, you find out a family member just sold their house or bought a house with someone else when they knew that you were there. Well, I'm sure the person they went with did a great job, like you said, of staying top of mind, building the credibility.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Man, that is huge. That's amazing, because I think like so many people are waiting to get someone like Inman contact them. Instead, you were taking the initiatives, being proactive, and trying to find ways to establish yourself as an authority in the market.
Yep.
Okay, so a little bit, just to dive into your social media organically wise, right? I know you've probably, I think, from what I've seen, I know that you also do some digital marketing and stuff like that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But obviously, what are some of the stuff that you focus on? I know when you started out, you were doing, right, like working on SEO, blogs and stuff like that. What later on were you doing that was organically that helped you obviously start growing to the point where you could, get a team and start hiring people to work under you?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent, like I had to get my business up to the level that warranted it. When you first start out and you're just like, the first thing a lot of people want to do is start a team, just to probably alleviate some of their work so that they don't have to show all the properties and they don't have to go out and hold open houses on Saturday and all that type of stuff. But that could be a really quick path to taking money out of your own pocket and then giving it to your team members, taking those leads that you would be chasing down and giving them to team members. And then at the end of the day, what you end up doing is robbing Peter just to pay Paul. And that's not really the effective way to do it. So you have to establish yourself and get yourself, I'd say somewhere around, 25 to 30 deals a year, because then at that point, you're either overextending your time or you're letting things slip through the cracks. And so that's probably about the time where a team member might come in and start to be helpful for you. And so organically, I think I just had to continue working on myself until I was up to that certain point. And then at that point, I felt comfortable about adding team members. And then same thing with like organically doing like Instagram and Facebook growth and stuff like that. I would actually just do it myself. Literally, I would go and I would like follow people and comment on their stuff and like create these relationships. Up to the certain point till a couple years ago, till now I had felt like I was like, all right, cool. Now I have a good enough following. I can let it come to me organically. I don't need to actually be in the trenches anymore. But the first like 5 years, it's all I was doing because I had nothing else to do. I had nothing but time. I didn't have kids yet. And, my wife was around. She was my girlfriend at the time. But basically, like, all I was doing was like literally commenting and like following people on social media and making these connections. And so it took a lot longer to make it happen, but then it started to take off for the last couple of years. It was like a compounding effect.
Yeah, exactly. You got that exponential growth, which again, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think so many people are looking for the shortcuts. And after interviewing so many people, and I'm pretty sure every time you get up there and speak, you're just hearing a lot of the same things over and over. Yet people there on the stage are listening, and I don't think it's still processing, in their brain that hey, this didn't happen overnight. It actually took caring. Because taking the time to go through, like you're saying in the comments, leaving, actually comments that are genuine and thoughtful and not just some emojis, actually does take some time. But like you're saying, that's what's going to pay off in the long run, because those are the stuff that stay in people's mind. Remember? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. If you're able to have a conversation with somebody, social media with the world we live in is fantastic. Because back in the day, it would have taken, the max amount of lunches and coffees you can have in a day is like 3-4. You know what I mean? You can maybe go to a networking event and meet 3-4 more people. It's like, all right, in one day you can max talk to like six to 10 people. Social media, you can talk to 40-50 people in a day and have like a good, meaningful conversation. And so like the ability to scale your business nationwide is just, it's crazy. It's something that we couldn't have done even 10 years ago, much less, 50 years ago. And we can do that.
I can say this much. We were dirt poor growing up. And when my dad got into real estate was when things started changing. I went into high school living a whole different life that I didn't, before that I didn't have. And part of that, back then when my dad was doing it, it was like, hey, you're going to come with me and pass out flyers in the cars outside of the supermarket, at apartments, at homes. And, this was when I was living in Miami, and we're talking about in the middle of the humidity when it was hot. There was no social media then for him. I don't think he even knew about blogging or SEO or any of that stuff.
Yeah, not back then.
Yeah, so just a couple of years ago, I'm kind of like, wait, I'm kind of seeing that the majority of the agents are still doing the same things or relying on the same strategies that my dad was using back in like, what was this, 2003, 2002? And I'm going, how is this possible? Yeah. Only a small margin of realtors are leveraging the tools available today. And that's why I said, hold on, I've got to get in the space and do something, because real estate obviously is what changed my family's life around. And I said, if I could help someone out there, they're still relying on old things, even a little bit, it's not only changes their life, but their families. So yeah, man, that's huge. So perfect. All right. So obviously social media was a big key factor. Building relationships, that, establishing yourself inside that community was like a big thing for you. When did you feel the need to actually start? Because this is a thing that I see with agents also, that are doing a great job with their sphere of influence, and they're building relationships in the community. Obviously, at what point do you start allocating a budget for advertising and start doing the digital stuff?
Yeah, I think that started probably year 3 or 4, once I had enough money to to do it, right? Because a lot of the things that you need, like a Zillow account, right, or realtor.com or something like that, like those are probably the best online leads, because those are people who are effectively going onto a website saying, call me, or, whatever, but they're expensive. They're hella expensive. And like the way that online leads work, you have to like have hundreds of leads come in to get 2 or 3 deals out of it. So like Zillow, like where every lead's like $400 or $500, it's just not worth it to do 1 or 2 leads a month. You know what I mean? You have to actually be able to spend, $5,000 plus a month. Realtor.com, probably about the same, maybe a little bit less, but like ultimately like the online lead game is really, really expensive. So like it wasn't until year 3 or 4 that I really had enough money to do that. The first thing I did was establish a geographic farm of a neighborhood that I worked in, which in this case was downtown, but then that expanded out. So I would get like a listing in an area that I wanted to farm, and then I would mail all the neighbors. I would do handwritten mailers, on an envelope and put my name in there, or like a letter that I tri-folded, and then I'd mail it out with an actual like stamp on it. And then I would actually be able to take that listing and get more listings within the neighborhood because of my handwritten mailers. And then that parlayed into postcard farming. And then I would actually run like targeted ads to that zip code through Facebook ads and stuff. So I would take the funds and do like a geographic farming approach. And then around year 4 or 5, once that was really starting to click, then I would also layer in some online lead stuff like Zillow and realtor.com and stuff.
That's awesome, man. And I actually want to dive a little deeper into that aspect because I have, obviously, what I do is I have a digital marketing agency that works with realtors as well. And a lot of them come to me and say, hey, I want to start running ads because I want to generate leads online. And the first thing I say, and I don't work with people unless they've got a good answer to this, it's like, what's your back end look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I can generate for you 50 leads this month, right? What if you can't get on the phone with these people immediately? What do you have on the back end to nurture those leads? Because once you stop running ads, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more. So how do you cultivate, you know, and build rapport and relationships with these people that you already got in your ecosystem? So for you, you know, what's the back end look like once you're generating those leads from online?
Yeah, so we have a team now of 7, and I would venture to go out and say, like, if you're doing a lot of online lead generation, you need to either have some sort of an ISA or a team that, or you're going to be really busy because you have to call those people within 5 minutes. Like the old thing is speed to lead, but like with online leads, basically those people are on. They've clicked on your ad, they've clicked on Google, and then they've gone to your website and filled out a form, or they're on Zillow or realtor.com, whatever it is that they're doing. And they're looking at you right now, or they're on your website right now, but 5 minutes from now, they're going to be gone. And they're going to be, you know what I mean? So if you can call them within that first 5 minutes, they're going to like remember. You're like, hey, I saw you're on our website looking at 123 Banana Street. I wanted to see if you wanted to set an appointment. Can I answer any questions for you about the property? Whatever that is. You can capture them in the moment, then it's going to be an easy conversation. But if you call them back 3 hours later, they've already looked at 17 other websites, made a sandwich, gone to the gym, right? And so now you call them and they're going to say, who are you? Like, what was I doing? I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. Like, don't call me anymore.
Yeah, that's if they didn't reach another agent after they
correct. If they went to 17 other websites and clicked 17 other things, someone else got it too. Yeah. And so ultimately, like, there's no conversion after like the first 10 minutes, like I would say, you know what I mean? It's like it drops from 100% down to 2%. And so like it is important to have drip campaigns on. So like if you're not able to get a hold of them on the phone, they get hit with we use a double dial text. So we'll call, don't answer, and then we'll call right back, because that's how you know it's like an important call. If you get a call, you don't answer, and you call again, you're going to answer. And then secondarily, we'll hit them with a text message, no voicemail. So it'll be like call, text. And then if they're not answering back to the text, which most people will answer back to the text, then we put them onto a drip campaign for like a 14-point email that goes out from 1 to a year, so that they can stay in touch with our newsletters and stuff like that. And then, of course, a good agent will probably try to call them back again that afternoon, and then maybe once or twice the next day. And if you can't get them by the next day, they're probably gone by that point.
Exactly.
But, now, keeping all those people into your ecosystem is fine because you can send them your newsletter. But if you've never made that connection in the first couple minutes,
they're gone.
It's probably gone. Yeah,
it's probably gone. But another side of a coin on that is that, especially now with the psychology fear factor probably kicking in with interest rates rising or whatever the case may be, some people might be sitting down waiting to do something, a few months down the line, waiting for things to happen. And for that, obviously, I'm sure you have more of a longer nurturing campaigns for that to stay top of mind, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, we send out weekly newsletter emails with rate updates and stuff. Well, they're segmented out from buyers and sellers, right? And so like if any type of like news article or content that we put out, we work with a marketing company called Curator, and they make a bunch of content for us. They stay in touch with our past clients for us through an email newsletter, and then they run social ads for us based on our segments of buyers and sellers and past clients. And so they'll stay in touch with everybody. And then our CRM, Chime, has a scoring system on there, so that actually if people come back and revisit your website, either through your emails that you're sending out or, the property alerts, or just voluntarily, their score will go up. And so each day you can actually sort by score, and it's like the highest scores, those are the most active people. So maybe those are the people that the agents are going to call today. And so we do kind of monitor it that way as well. But I'm telling you, like if you're doing online lead generation, the first 5 minutes is the most critical time to get in touch with them. Otherwise it becomes a wild long shot.
Yeah, for sure, man. But I really love that you shared that, because so many people, I'm talking about, they want to run ads, and I'm like, what if you've got your back end set up already? And I'll tell you now, it's kind of sad. I think over 80% of the people don't have, they're like, you know what? They don't even have like a pipeline management. Like they're just kind of like, how do you follow
Like
up with people
no
that those
CRM,
relationships that you're
no,
building.
yeah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for you. Like the old school, like having everybody on like a Google sheet or something like that. That's probably not going to work in this day and age. I mean, maybe if you want to keep all your past clients' information there, that might be fine because you've already worked with them. But if you're trying to establish relationship with new leads that are coming in, you got to have a multi-pronged follow-up approach.
Yeah, and I love that because I want to actually get into that a little bit. Now, I always tell everyone that I work with, you got to build your database, right? And you got to stay on top of the people that you have worked with already in the past, because the goal is that in the future, they're either going to sell their home again, they're either going to maybe look to invest in properties and they're going to know their realtor, or they're going to know someone that's looking to buy or sell.
Yeah.
What's that process for you to follow up with your existing database, past clients already?
Yeah. So all of my past clients, husbands and wives. So like, that's the other thing is you may work with the husband or a wife, and then you just save their number because that's the one you've talked to the most. But the wife has a whole nother network too of people. So you want to make sure that you have the husbands and the wives saved in your CRM. Important days like home anniversaries and birthdays, so you can reach out to them for those type of things. I usually add them to social media as well, start following them, commenting on their pictures, all that type of stuff. Not just so that they can see my stuff, but I can see their stuff. Like that's the key right there. It's a two-way street. So it's not just I'm expecting them to like every video I put out, but I want to see their life, their milestones and stuff, because I want to engage. And then I stay in touch with them usually on a quarterly basis with some sort of a home valuation, whether that be done. There's some sites out there like HomeBot or like some CRMs will do automatic CMAs for your client every month or every quarter. I usually try to do some sort of a personal touch once a quarter with a CMA attached to it. That's like, hey, the market's been shifting a little bit. You know, here's a quick outlook of the last 3 months of all the comparable homes in your neighborhood. But ultimately, I'm really making the conversations happen on social media and on important anniversary dates.
Yeah,
birthday, anniversary.
Man, Jason, you are rock solid superstar, man. That is one thing that, again, so many people don't do. I've asked them, hey, how many of these people that you've worked with in the past are you following on Instagram or social media? I mean, come on, this is where most of the people are spending their time these days. Totally. If you're taking the time to like their stuff, there's no way that they'll ever refer anyone else to another agent that's not you.
Totally, 100%. I agree.
Yeah, that's definitely one area where I think most people drop the ball. And it's like, hey, if you've got them in your database, you should also have them on social media where they're spending their time, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, because that's where they're going there to keep in touch with family and friends. You've now become a friend.
You become a friend. I mean, that's where you spend your time, right? Why aren't you talking to them there? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I hate getting mailers and door knocked and emails, or you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather spend my time on social media, and that's where they're spending their time too.
That is crazy. Okay, I love that you're doing that as well, and that you share that with us as well too, because I really want people to take that with them and hopefully go out there. And you know what, the first thing you could do right now is go to your existing database, start putting their email or their name on social media and see who of them is spending time there. And then, hey, I saw your daughter had a birthday. Happy birthday! Like, oh my gosh,
easy, yeah. You big Padres fans. It's like you fall like across extra tickets to a Padres game, right? That's 2 tickets for $40 each. That's an $80 investment, but you just rock their world by being like, hey, I have 2 extra tickets to the Padres. You guys want to go? Dude. There's something like that. And it's like, you can legitimately get a client for life out of that type of stuff.
I love that, man. That's amazing. So, all right. So perfect. So we covered a little bit already, digital marketing. We covered a little bit on building relationships and then, building, establishing yourself within the community. Now, there are obviously a lot of tactics, right? People that door knock and do that consistently, it's going to work for them. Anything, anyone really sticks to and does consistently, eventually it'll pay off if you do it long enough. But I know that you're a guy that kind of doesn't put all your eggs in one basket. So I'm assuming you, and I've seen some other interviews as well, and I kind of just want to get your take on that here for those that maybe haven't watched any of those interviews before. I know that you also take advantage of mailers and stuff like that. I know you work with a company, you might still or might not, but how does that work for you as well as sending out mailers and like how well is that working for you as well?
Geographic farming, I think, is still pretty key if you're trying to establish yourself in a neighborhood, because listings are what you want, and geographic farming typically is how you farm for listings versus online lead generation, which is typically going to get you buyers. You can get both, but typically going to get you buyers. So by establishing yourself in a geographic farm, which you do through mailers, that's really the only, or door knocking, right? Those are the 2 ways that you get something in front of them at their home. It is still really effective. Now, I like to take a multi-prong approach. So usually what I'll do is I'll run a postcard campaign. And then if I have a listing in there, I'll also invite all the neighbors to a private open house for the neighbors. And then I'll do handwritten, just listed, just solds. In the neighborhood, I work with a company called Celebrity Agent. So they do the handwritten farming. So it's like it's a robotic pen, but it looks like it's handwritten, and they'll send the letters out for you. Just works a little bit better than postcards. You can do both though. Yeah. And then typically what I try to do is push people to a landing page. And then if you push them to the landing page, you can have like a retargeting code so that if someone visits the landing page, then they get retargeted with your ads. And then before you know it, people just start to see you everywhere. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately what you want, like a omni-channel approach. So it's not just the mailers or just the online ads or just the social media videos and stuff like that, the market updates. They're just starting to see it all. And then at the certain point, then they go to call you. You're sitting across. I had a client where I was sitting across from them at the coffee table, and I'm like, "How did you hear about us?" And they're like, "We don't know. I just see you everywhere." You know what I mean? And it's like, well, boom, like I don't know specifically which campaign or which thing got.
Yeah, because you want to see where those leads are coming from.
But it's all of it. You know what I mean? It's all of it. They probably got a mailer.
More than ever now, omnipresent is huge. Definitely. I mean, maybe some people check their Instagram a couple times a day. Some people get busy in life and they won't check Instagram at all that day, but maybe they'll jump in on LinkedIn or maybe they'll Google something. And if you're running a Google ad campaign, that's where they'll see you in. So it is important to try to be in as many places as you can. Obviously, I always say focus on one where you are spending most of your time, but don't forget about the other places too.
Yeah, for sure.
And going into that, YouTube, right? We talked about YouTube earlier. Obviously, not enough people, I think, are utilizing YouTube. And I know that you're one of the guys that is. Can you just go in a little bit into that?
I think I could be doing a better job of it too, because YouTube can be used for like long form organic content generation. So like you can be like the best coffee shops in Kensington, San Diego, right? Or something like that. And YouTube is actually, they're owned by Google. YouTube is first and foremost a search engine that then provides content to the people searching. So like anybody who's searching like moving to San Diego, moving from San Diego, best schools in San Diego, best neighborhoods to live in. Those are all things that real people will search on Google. You should have a video for each one of those so that that'll rank well within your YouTube channel, right? And so like, I don't even have all that type of stuff. Like I have work to be doing, because what I like to do is I usually use YouTube to like host my videos. And I do a lot of educational videos, like what are supplemental property taxes? I'm putting that one out today. And so like my YouTube has a lot of that, which is fine, but I need to do better. Like moving to San Diego, here are the 5 best school districts or something like that. I think that there's a real opportunity in most big cities for agents to dominate and become like the digital mayor of their city by doing YouTube content. But I like to use YouTube as an advertising platform. I'll use the TrueView ads or the pre-roll ads, where I'll actually create a market update and then I'll run it an ad campaign on YouTube, so that, you know how like when you watch a YouTube video and then you get like a commercial and then you have to wait 5 seconds and you can skip it. Well, your video can be that commercial. You just have to run a YouTube ad, and I'll create market updates and run it to targeted segments using YouTube ads. So I do use YouTube for the ad roll.
And they're highly effective. I mean, if anyone was Googling anything even related to your topic and you end up on YouTube, which I think YouTube TV, I think more people are watching YouTube these days than they're watching cable.
Yeah, I have YouTube TV.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity to get yourself in front of people that are looking into your city, moving there. And you're living in just like a hot spot, San Diego. I mean, I think a lot of people are moving to San Diego, relocating there from other places. Yeah. And those kind of videos, really, like you're saying, anywhere you're at, if you have no idea where to start, you just mentioned a few type of videos that they can get going right away. Popular coffee shops, new restaurants opening in the area. Like you're saying, type of schools, they're in whatever, grading they have. All that kind of stuff is the stuff that people are searching for when they're moving.
For sure. Yeah. Answer any question. So for San Diego, our biggest feeder markets are San Francisco and Los Angeles. So I should have videos that are like moving from San Francisco to San Diego. Here's what you need to know, right? Or whatever. And it's going to be a top 3 things to know if you're moving from Los Angeles to San Diego. Top 5 things to know before moving to San Diego, right? Those type of videos do really well.
Yeah. And not only that, but the great thing is if you spend the time to actually do that and do a long form video on YouTube specifically for that, you can now cut that up, repurpose it, use it on Instagram, put it on LinkedIn. And I mean, so many things you could do with
all of it. Yeah, the Gary V pillar content strategy, something like this, right? We're doing this 30-40 minute interview, and you'll be able to eat off of this for a week, because then you're going to be able to snip out 10 or 15 little 30-second things that were said, and then you're going to be able to repurpose it in vertical for Instagram Reels or TikTok. And like, you can just take 1 or 2 pieces of content, and then you can put it all across social, and you'll be able to, I always look at it as like the old days, they would like kill like a whale and eat off of it for like weeks. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so you have like this content, the long form content, and then you can eat off of it for weeks.
Yeah, no, it's really the smart way to go about it, and not get so overwhelmed by, why I got a batch 10 videos. I mean, sometimes you could do just one video and
just do one long
cut
video,
it up into 10.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. So, all right, awesome. Now, another really key thing that really was like a highlight in watching some of the interviews you had online is that obviously one of the videos I saw recently from Patrick Bet David, he talks about how once he put up a video on YouTube that he put it up, it was a couple of days later, he goes back to look at the metrics, see how it did. He goes, I had no view at all. This was from, I think his team had put it up for him. And all of a sudden he was reading the subject headline and looking at the description, and he just said something kind of gave him he just knew he had to change something. So he changed the subject headline. He goes and changes the description, and he looks at that same video 2 days later. Boom! Ended up going viral. The same content. The only thing is that now the subject headline had different copy. The subscription was different. And I know from one of your interviews you talk about. And I think obviously with Curator as well, with their help, with, really narrowing down your messaging, and how is that? And, of course, once you've got all this set up, now we're really talking about tweaking the system you put in place. How has that helped you? And how can someone implement some of these changes as well?
Yeah, for sure. We just had, I'm not even going to pretend like I'm like necessarily the YouTube expert or anything like that, but we just had Jeremy Knight, who has a huge account in Austin. He's got like 14,000 subscribers. He does a ton of business off of it. And he said that in order, the title, the thumbnail, and the keywords are the most important thing to your video. But basically having your keywords in your title, having a really capturing thumbnail, and then basically having keywords within your content. So just like saying the keywords a lot is going to do a lot to rank your video, because YouTube will actually have auto captions put on it. And when they caption it, if you've said San Diego real estate a bunch in there, it's going to rank your video higher for San Diego real estate. So like those 3 things do matter a lot. Like we could shoot the same video, but if I have a better title, thumbnail, and keywords, I'm going to rank much higher. Yeah, those are really important things to get discovered.
Yeah, and obviously there are tons of tools out there. One that I use is TubeBuddy, I think it is. That's something that, they'll give you some SEO help and keywords that, other videos that are also going viral are ranking for, and they'll give you, so you can obviously modify it and you hopefully use some of the similar words. But again, you really want to like make sure that those keywords that's in the video is in your subjects, it's in the description, it's in the keywords you're using, and the hashtags or whatever the case may be. Yep. So that's huge. I think that's, one place that I was like, really, man, I was like, this Jason Cassidy, he's like a surgeon. Yeah, he really is just kind of, covering all his bases. And I just really hope that, people watching this really take in that, again, this didn't happen overnight. This was 10 years in the making, obviously. Yep. Now, another key thing where I know a lot of people are building the business as well, building the sphere of influence, obviously going digital, sending out those mailers. How involved are you in community, and how is that you feel like it really giving you back in the business?
It's good, man. We do some beach cleanups and stuff like that here in San Diego, which is obviously pretty fun. And then, my wife and I, we have, we do some giving and stuff that we keep private, but it's always good to get back in out into the community and stuff like that. We actually just a couple of weeks ago did a Habitat for Humanity build too. And those are always a fun time to go out and try to, we don't actually do anything. We end up just like raking leaves or something, but I always say they don't want my help on the construction side, but it's always good to get back out and give back a little bit, Yeah,
that's, what, it's funny that you mentioned that. I just moved to Tampa from Los Angeles.
Oh, shout out. That's awesome. I didn't know that. We have a flip going in Tampa right now.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, well, whenever you're in town, please let me know.
Sunset Beach. Is that the name of the area?
You know what? I'm so new. I don't even know. I made my first video. I think it was last week. It's on my page on this area called Hyde Park.
Oh, cool.
And it's I think Derek ended up, oh man, I love Hyde. So many people were like, dude, I love Hyde Park.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm just learning about it. So I made a video on it as well. But yeah, great area. So, sort of, I'm starting to do, again, some of those things that I know are best practices, going into the community itself and doing that. But my stepmom, she's, heavily involved in the church that she goes to in that area.
Yep.
And she was like, hey, Marlon, they're doing a habitat, what do you call it? Builder program over there this weekend if you want to check it out. And I had done something similar in the past. My girlfriend, my wife now, as of a year ago, she would be like, "What'd you say?" She and I actually were like, yeah, we love volunteering, doing stuff like that. So we actually went. We did one this past weekend there. And I had never done one before, but I went there and I saw that most people were like, okay, I'll grab a broom. I was like, I'll grab a paintbrush. And all the easy stuff were taken. So I was looking at like what was left. But you know what? I was so proud. I ended up putting up a medicine cabinet, a mirror in the bathroom. Cool. My wife was like, "You're gonna do that?" I was like, "I'm not gonna help you. I don't want to, put up no crooked glass mirror or anything like that." But yeah, man, I got to meet the family there that were involved. Obviously, they have to put up certain hours as well there. Yeah, and I use it just for I use it as a piece of content. That I'm in the process of editing now. I've got a great interview from the actual homeowner that. She's like, hey, I'm the first one in my family now to own a home.
Yeah, that's cool.
So these things really make an impact in their life. And I think life finds a way to, it's not the reason why you do it, but life finds a way to reward you somehow when you get involved in those communities. And those people remember the impact that you're making in their life. And
for sure.
Again, if you go, hey, what is it that you do? Oh, I'm a realtor. Yeah. I mean, hey, whenever they hear anyone ever that needs any kind of real estate help, who do you think they're going to go to? So I think community is a huge thing, man. That's awesome that you're doing that. Awesome. All right, real quick to move things on going, guys. We're almost wrapping this up. So I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this, because honestly, a lot of stuff that you've shared, obviously stuff that you're implementing in your business. What's your take on the future of real estate and where it's going? I know I mentioned earlier that personal branding is really going to be a game changer. Obviously, the technology and what Zillow is trying to do out there is really taking away somewhat from what the business that agents are relying on traditionally. And unless you build that, there's a way. You either use technology, you build your brand, but there's so many avenues. What for you? And obviously with the metaverse coming out as well, and people selling space, real estate space in the metaverse, where do you see the game going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as technology improves, things that we as agents have done for the past 30 or 50 years are going to be no longer needed, right? So like even now, like for the 70s and 80s and 90s, agents or consumers needed agents to see what was available. You know what I mean? We had the old MLS books and stuff like that. Well, then Zillow and Realtor.com and these portals came along, and that made it to where that avenue was no longer needed anymore. Consumers could just go online and search for homes at that point. So that didn't necessarily mean that agents went away, but like the what we were needed for shifted. So then our role became more of, obviously setting up a /tour guide /negotiator /psychiatrist /lawyer /inspector, all the other stuff that we do. But home searching wasn't part of that anymore. Well, I can imagine as, for vacant homes now, there's smart locks and there's cameras. We could get to a point where we're not needed to go open the door anymore, right? Because they can just go in and tour the home. And so maybe there's going to get to a point where, even DocuSign now, we don't need to help them sign it because they can just sign anymore. So there's going to be a point in the next 5 or 10 years where the role of the agent is going to shift just a tad. And I think it's going to happen more so on the buyer side of things, because forgetting about the entire lawsuit that's happening right now, which is the NAR lawsuit, the class action, which could fundamentally change the way that buyers representation in America happens anyways. Forgetting about that, which I don't think you should forget about. I think that's probably the most important thing happening right now. But forgetting about that, I think that technology will change the role of the buyer's agent, and some company, I don't know who it's going to be. It might be Zillow. It might be some new company will come along and provide an easier way for consumers to go directly to a listing agent and get that service that they need at a cheaper cost. There will be commission compression on the buy side. I think that listing agents will still be an effective route to make a living because you're being hired by someone to do a job. Whereas the buyer's agent, they're not being hired by the buyer. They're collecting a fee from the seller for bringing the buyer. But if all the stuff that the buyer's agent is doing is being now done by someone else, some third-party online service, I can see a world where the buyer's agent starts to get commission compressed out. Throw in the fact that there's a class action lawsuit about NAR basically talking about how realtors are price fixing through this whole thing. I can fundamentally see a world within 5 to 10 years where there are no more buyer's agents, or the role of the buyer's agent is shifted to the point where there may be like a hired consultant for like a flat fee. You know what I mean? Maybe as a buyer, it's like, hey, we'll hire you for $5,000 to negotiate for us and do our paperwork. But it's not going to be like you get 2.5% just for showing up, right? That's going to be the change. I think that the listing side has a little bit more runway because the listing agent is still the one who coordinates the staging and the photos and the video and puts it out to the world with a beautiful face on it. And then you know what I mean? So they're the ones who are actually being hired. But at a certain point, when they're not able to tie the 2.5 together anymore, and that's not going to be a thing, then they're going to start getting hired for 2.5%, and the buyer's going to have to figure it out themselves. And when that's the case, I think what's going to happen is they're going to turn to a Zillow or a software type company to do all that work for them. And that's what's going to be the change. You can mark that down as my 5-year prediction. We'll see if I'm right or not, but
we'll definitely be revisiting this for sure in the future and seeing how close or how far you were to the aim.
Yeah, for sure. I'm down. I'm down to be proven wrong or proven right.
And just a little bit on somewhat on that. But how did the pandemic change your business? I mean, obviously we mentioned that people had to pivot. Did you have to do anything different? Well, obviously
No, like during the months of the pandemic, I shifted. We shifted the way we showed property. We stopped doing some of our geographic farms when you weren't really supposed to be sending postcards through the mail. I don't know. There was some stuff that we shifted, but for the most part, no. And then we got busy again. For the first few months of the pandemic, it was really slow, and then it got really busy again, and really was all the way through 2021. So I don't know that it necessarily shifted the way we did business. It really made virtual stuff like this, right? Like virtual Zoom calls are now kind of that's how we do our buyer consultations. I've done listing appointments on Zoom. I think that the innovation with virtual meetings has shifted a lot, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily shifted our the meat and potatoes of our business that much.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It definitely wasn't the case, I think, for some people. I think a lot of the people that were in real estate for 20 or so years and we're doing things the old ways, we're forced now to pick up on the new strategies and the new technologies, and like Zoom. I think there were a bunch of webinars, I'm sure, on just how to use Zoom, all the brokerages and whatnot, and even on the technology side, like Matterport and stuff like that. I mean, is that something that you leverage in your business, Matterport?
Oh yeah, for sure. We've done that since before. So back before Matterport was really even a thing, we were using our old phone because back when panoramic shots came out, you could do a panoramic and then you can use Google Street View to stitch them together. And we were doing interior. Basically, we were doing what Matterport does, but in a really crappy way. Back before the Matterport camera came. And so I thought I think that the Matterport tours are more innovative than that's been one of the most innovative things of the past 20 years. Is the Matterport camera, because it's better than photos. And videos are fine, but I think videos do better for to show off the agent versus showing off the home. Yes. And so for a consumer sitting at home who just wants to see the layout of the home, the Matterport tour is way more important than the video or the photos.
Yes. Oh man, I agree with that, because again, I think nowadays with so many things happening, people having less time and their attention span being a lot shorter, going all the way out to drive out to see a home that's miles away from you, and everyone's got a different schedule. It's easier for you probably to just send out your Matterport photography listing out to someone before you actually have to go in person and see it and already know that whether that person has some interest in it or not. So that's huge. And I love that idea, because obviously everyone's uses Google Maps to a certain degree and everyone's used to following that arrow and all that stuff. And you are already doing that. So seamless transition for you and your team, I'm sure.
Yeah, we were all about the 3D tours.
All right, that's amazing. All right, guys, we're going to start wrapping up. I usually like to end these interviews with these 10 questions. Obviously, I mentioned that I lived in California, that my wife's an actress. I obviously, that's also, my background. I was just recently in the book of Boba Fett. So if you're a Star Wars fan,
You were?
yes, I was.
No way, that's so sick. I'm the biggest Star Wars nerd there is.
I had a 5-episode arc on there. So the last episode that I'm in, that I end up blowing up in one of the cantinas, that episode had Luke Skywalker in it, the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And I'm the green dude with the big ears. I was a Twi'lek, is what they call it.
Dude, that's so sick. That's so rad. Hell yeah.
Obviously, I'm like a realtor in the sense that with acting, you never know when your next gig is.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's, obviously when the pandemic hit, that's when I really doubled down and I went all in on my marketing business. And I said, you know what, whether this thing decides to take off or not, there's very little I can control. But this other thing, I have a lot more control of. Yeah. And like back when you started out in real estate, luckily, your wife had a steady gig. My wife is on a soap that's been there for 50 years. It might be there for another 50, thank God, So she had a thing there. But again, she wasn't going to be able to film. The entertainment industry practically shut down completely. So, at that point, as the man of the house, I said, holy crap, like, okay, now I've got to figure out a way to start supporting my family. And, obviously I jumped in completely. And since then, have really been able to do some great stuff and more importantly, help a lot of people. So as an actor, I used to watch this show called The Actor Studio on Bravo TV. And this guy would interview all the A-listers. And at the end, he would ask these 10 questions, which now I've integrated into my own podcast interviews. So I call them the James Lipton questions, because he was the one that used to originally ask him. So these are the first thing that comes to your mind. You just shoot the first answer that comes out. 10 questions. We'll get through it pretty swiftly. And I think that, this is really cool because it's a little bit outside the real estate area. And my goal with this is to hopefully one day make a montage of all these things and see what Jason said for this question, and Derek and Chris and, Gabe said for all these different things. Okay. So as we go, let's go. Here we go. Question number 1. What is your favorite word?
Empathy.
Empathy. I love it. I'm not even going to go in too deep because you know what? I get it. Question number 2. What is your least favorite word?
Regret.
Don't leave nothing on the table, right? Go all in. I love that. Number 3. What turns you on?
Like my wife.
Hey, great answer. First time I hear something that, hey, that's what I would have said. My wife. Yeah. Question number 4. What turns you off?
Like lack of ambition, I guess you'd say. Like when I see people who are just like not motivated to like do better. I don't know. It's not a turn off, but it's just
pity victims.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not a turn off, but like I just disassociate with that.
Yeah. My dad used to say, when I used to say, no, but this guy, he's so much this and so much that. My dad goes, you got 5 fingers and 5 toes, just like him. You're no different. You took action. Maybe you haven't yet. So I love that answer. Question number 5. What sound or noise do you love?
I love a golf ball hitting the bottom of the cup. That sound. Ooh, I love a basketball swish sound.
Ooh,
I like those 2 sounds.
I played basketball in high school, so I can agree with you there.
Yeah, I relate. Like individual sounds, I like those.
Yeah. Question number 6. What sound or noise do you hate?
Man, I think like the only sound that I really hate is like fingernails. You know how like fingernails on a chalkboard like that? Yeah, I hate that.
That's what always comes to mind to me. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, I don't like that.
All right. Question number 7. And again, this is not PG. This is radar. Whatever word comes, you can go ahead and use. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Yeah. You can work for like fuck yes. Or
yeah. I was giving thought to some others, but I think fuck.
We know that's Gary Vee's word for sure.
For sure.
Embodies the fuck.
No problem saying that. Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite curse word.
All right, question number 8. We're three questions left. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Man, I guess you could say like an entrepreneur is another profession. Like I've co-founded a couple of side businesses here to go along with real estate, and they're both real estate related. So that's kind of a different profession. But if you're like a job, like a different thing, I think because I'll eliminate athlete because it's like you can't just attempt that. You have to have the skill and whatever, you know what I mean?
Height sometimes, some body.
Yeah, exactly. I can't just attempt to be an athlete, but I think like, you know, I think being an actor actually would be kind of cool.
Yeah, man. You're already camera friendly, so you're halfway there. I'm sure you've seen actors that you're like, how did that guy get a job? You know what? He's confident. He's confident in front of the camera, and that goes a long way. Question number 9: what profession would you not like to do?
Anything in like, I think anything in like HR, I probably wouldn't do very well with.
Yeah,
because I've been my own boss for like 12 years. Like, I don't know. I've run a couple businesses now. I don't think anything, not to say I'm very empathetic. Like I get along with people, but like, I don't know. I feel like anything HR related where you're like, just like managing different personalities like that. I just be like, just do it or don't. I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like do whatever you want. You know what I mean? So being like an HR rep and trying to like manage that would probably
no, you're right. I think that's, I when I was in retail before as well, and I had plenty of opportunities to be a manager and move up, I never took it. And one of the reasons was because, you know what? I don't want to be the guy on the other side dealing with all these personalities.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very much an individual contributor. Like I just want to worry about myself. So having to worry about like what other people are doing or like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, the whole customer you know what, if I focus on myself, hopefully that in some way will translate to the overall group. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, question number 10. Actually, one of my favorite questions. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
We got a spot right here for you. All your family members who came before you, all your friends who came before you, they're waiting to say what's up. You know what I mean? So I think that would probably be the nicest thing to reconnect.
Yes, I love that, man. That's awesome. There's no right or wrong answers over there, but these were all amazing answers. Obviously, the last thing before we finally cut off is where else can we, follow you? For those of us that are here that aren't already following you, and obviously, if you wanted to go a little bit deep into, I think, right, it was, your what do we call it here? San Diego, you got a San Diego studio and your referred network. If you want to just dive into that as well.
Yeah. So obviously social media is probably the best way. Instagram is where I spend most of my time. You can follow me on Instagram, Jason_Cassidy, Cassity. But yeah, just reach out to me on social media. It's always me. You know what I mean? It's not going to be someone else from my team. That's always me.
That's good to know.
And then, yeah, we started that's our real estate. Obviously we have a real estate team here. We also started a studio, which is a video marketing agency here in San Diego to help real estate agents shoot better content, called Studio Genius. And then I co-founded a business called Refer, which is a nationwide referral network of real estate agents, one agent per city. And we send referrals amongst each other and we bring in guest speakers and stuff like that. I co-founded that with the broke agent, actually, Eric. We talked about him earlier. And so those 3 things are the 3 things that I get to spend all my time on, besides, my wife and kids here at home. But you find me, for any of that type of stuff, you'll get me and we'll have a good chat.
Yeah, and Instagram is the main platform that they can definitely reach you at. Drop me a DM, ask any questions. I'm sure
I'm there.
Open. Perfect. Awesome, guys. So there you heard it. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today. Obviously, we went a little longer than I normally would have, but obviously, once we got going, there was just so many other things that I wanted to just get your feedback from, and I really think this is going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining us. We wish you nothing but the best, and of course, we're going to continue following your journey, and we'll come back to revisit if that future, prediction you made actually comes true or not.
That's right. Hell yeah. That's awesome. I hope it does. I mean, I hope it does because it'll evolve the industry, and I hope it doesn't because that means people might lose their job, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Let's circle back in 5 years.
Yeah, totally. All right, guys, there you heard it. For those of you watching now live or watching the recap, you can catch the full episode on your favorite streaming podcast platform. So that's Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. If you want to catch the video, you can watch it on Spotify as well. So thank you guys for joining us. And until the next time, have a good one. Take care, guys.
Peace.